Hey church, I wanted to take just a few minutes today to reflect on something that happened this week. On Sunday, we finished something we began together over 2 years ago. In January of 2020, we began our verse by verse, paragraph by paragraph walk through the Gospel of Mark. And on Sunday, after a total of 73 sermons, we arrived at the empty tomb and at the end of the book. Over the last few days, I've been thinking a lot about our time in Mark and how God has used this gospel and our time in this gospel during these last 2 years, these unusual years. And it's wild to think about how all the twists and turns of the pandemic and so many other things that have happened over the past 2 years, that through it all, the Gospel of Mark has been this constant companion, continually calling us back and pointing us towards Jesus. Sunday after Sunday, we've been reminded of the things that Jesus did. We've heard the things he said. And we've been pushed to see how the truth about Jesus should change the way we think about our lives and our world. And Mark did that for us. God did it for us through Mark on the weeks that seemed so out of control. The reality is, when we started our walk through the Gospel of Mark, we didn't know. We didn't know in January of 2020 what the years would bring. And honestly, I didn't know how long it would take us to work our way through the book. But as I look back, I'm so thankful for God's providence, for his kindness, that he would have us in this gospel for this season and for these years. I'm glad that Sunday after Sunday, through weeks and months of uncertainty, we were returning time and time again to the life and the ministry of Jesus, and we were being reminded of the one who knows all, who sees all, who governs all. Over the last 2 years, we have watched as our world has become more divisive and more divided. There's been a dramatic increase in political division, wave after wave of racial strife, the constant debates about masks and vaccines and government mandates. Yet week after week, we were able to come together, fix our eyes on Jesus, and find comfort in knowing that he came to rescue his people and to offer the hope that one day all things will be made right. His kingdom will come fully. If I'm honest, there were weeks when I looked at the news, when I scrolled through social media, and I wondered if we were doing the right thing. I wondered if the next paragraph in the Gospel of Mark was really what we needed as we tried to navigate the complexities of everything that was coming at us. But over and over, I was thankful for the providence of God and how he would always use that next part of the Gospel of Mark to give us clarity and strength and hope for the next week. I know for all of us, these last 2 years have been hard in ways that never made the news. Some in ways that no one else knows about. There's been loss of jobs, relational difficulties, sin struggles, health issues. And we can all make our own list of the things that we face and the burdens that we've carried over 2 years. And yet week after week, I would have to ask. I would ask myself and I would ask God, is this what we need? Is the next part of Mark what we need, what this church needs? As I prepared my sermons, I'd be thinking about you and your situations and the things you were facing, and I would pray that God would use his word, that he would use this weekly vision of Jesus to give you hope and to give you strength. And then so often, I would hear from one of you, maybe after church or maybe sometime during the week. And I would find out that prayers had been answered. Over and over, I was reminded that God uses his word to do his work in his people. As I think about the last 2 years, 73 weeks in the Gospel of Mark, I am so thankful to God for his kindness. Not only did we get to share those 73 Sundays together, focusing on Christ, but for me, I had the hours of preparation each week leading up to those Sundays, and I can't thank God enough for what he's shown me and how he's changed me through the days and weeks that he gave me through you to spend time wrestling and praying through the Gospel of Mark. It has changed me. It has sustained me. I asked myself this week, if I had known in January of 2020 all that would happen over the next 2 years, if the Gospel of Mark would have been the book I would have chosen for us in this season, and I don't really know the answer to that, but I'm thankful that I didn't know. I'm thankful that the God who knows the future is the one who guides our steps, and he knew what would be best for us. Looking back, I'm thankful that on the weeks when I didn't know what to say because the world around us just seemed too uncertain, on those weeks, God allowed us the chance to see Jesus, to find rest in him through whatever that next passage was in the Gospel of Mark. I'm thankful to God. And church, I'm also thankful to you for your love for God's word and how you've been faithful to gather and to trust that God will use his word to accomplish his will in you and in us as a church. You know this, and I know that I am so far from being a perfect pastor or preacher, but week after week, you have been gracious and you have encouraged me. And through all of my weakness, you've expressed your gratitude for the word being preached. And I want you to know that it is an honor that I do not take for granted. I thank God all the time for the privilege of sharing God's word with you week in and week out. And I pray that I steward the opportunity well. It's hard to wrap up a 2-year journey through a book like Mark. And even now I have passages and pieces and verses that are coming to mind. And I wonder if you have any part of Mark that stands out for you. If you have something, a verse, a story, a lesson you learned from the Gospel of Mark over the past 2 years, I would love to hear from you about that. Maybe you would take time this week to go back and to read through the Gospel of Mark, or to use an audio Bible and listen through the Gospel of Mark again and remember the ways that God has used this book to strengthen you. You could probably take passages and put them in times and in seasons when God used them. Maybe the hardest part of finishing a book is knowing what should be next for us. I don't know what the next year holds for us, for our church. And so I'm tempted to put pressure on myself to make sure I pick the perfect book for where we are now or where I think that we are headed. But I look back over the last 2 years and 73 weeks in the Gospel of Mark, and I take comfort in this. God knows the future, and his word will not return void. So let's keep gathering week after week and opening his word together, trusting that he will do his work in us. I love you, church. I'll see you soon.